All right.
Perfect.
Happy Friday, sir.
We're live?
We are live.
Happy
We're
Friday.
on a special Friday episode here of TG Live and
Yes, sir.
a special kind of content. You're back from hot and humid Las Vegas, I hear.
Yeah. Honestly, more dry this year, honestly. This time of the year, rather. But yeah, no, I'm excited to be back for this special episode and doing a Defcon debrief. So it was good. Definitely hot.
So maybe for some of us that don't know kind of what Defcon is, maybe kind of just give an example of, what is the conference about, maybe a little bit of history of it and some things like that for our viewers who haven't been before.
Yeah, no, totally. So Defcon is labeled as the world's largest hacking convention. It started, I think, in 1993 with a small group of hackers that lived in the United States. They're actually now known as the Dark Tangent, or that's the group that puts it on.
Very cool.
The original, or the OG, the creator, his buddy, was living in the United States at the time, and he was moving to Canada soon because his dad was relocating there.
Gotcha.
So as a going away party, he decided to put together this going away party in Vegas. But it turned out that the father had to go to Canada early, and so the guy didn't end up staying, went early with his father. And as a result, the OG, I think his name was Jeff Moss.
Okay.
He was like, well, I already planned this party. What am I going to do?
Gotta have it. It's already been paid for.
Right.
I'm here.
So
let's have something.
Exactly. So he hit up all his hacker buds on the forums and was like, listen, I got a party set up. You guys come out and let's just make a thing out of it. There were, I think, about 100 people that came at the time. And in that first one, they established the founding principles as well as the structure that is later to be known as Defcon,
right.
The organization known as Defcon.
Yeah, it went from 100-ish people to how many were there this time, you think? 20-something thousand?
Normally there's about that. This year, I'm not so sure because of the hybrid model.
Yeah,
so
that
was the one different thing about Defcon this year is, this was the first time they used that kind of virtual physical hybrid approach for obvious reasons.
Right.
But it did change the experience a little bit, but I also thought it added some interesting elements as well, being able to, kind of interact with it virtually.
You think there was less people this year than maybe when you went 2 years ago?
Yes.
Okay.
Hands down, yeah. It was noticeably smaller.
Got it. Which you said it's probably better because then you can get into more sessions and talks and things like that, right?
That would have been the case if it wasn't for all of the mandates and the kind of procedures that we had to go through.
That's a good point.
So, and the limitations and like rooms and whatnot. So I think that normally would have probably been the case. Like in the future, I can totally see a situation where they just kind of keep the virtual component anyways.
Right.
And I bet some people like interacting with it more that way, regardless. And then that would decongest the physical elements of the event itself. But yeah.
Very cool. So I see you have a nice little badge here next to us.
The badge.
I hear so many things about these amazing badges and what they can do in the games and the whole hacker potential. So maybe kind of walk us through the badge and what it means and kind of some of the things you found about it for this one.
Yeah, no, and so let me try and get it in the screen here, in video here. But this is basically how it looks. Let me actually put it up closer to the camera.
Yeah, it'll focus.
It's like a microcontroller with a macro board, as well as I think there are about 6 different ports on here. But basically, or rather 6 different ports and connectors. But yeah, so the history of badges, obviously you use these to authorize yourself within the conference, but there are a lot of different types of badges. This is the human one because I'm a pleb, just an attendee. But there are press badges, speaker badges, vendor badges, goon badges, which are the event security. Okay. And then the most coveted one, which is it's called an Uber badge or a black badge.
Interesting.
And these are like
they're really hard to get. It's a whole very hierarchy type of a thing, right?
Highly coveted, and usually you get it by completing the challenges associated with the badge or at the events.
At like prior events, you think, or you kind of get one for the next year?
That's exactly right, because if you get the black badge, it provides you lifetime access to Defcon.
So wow, that's highly coveted.
Yes, 100%. In fact, I was just thinking about it yesterday. If you thought about it, like I bet there was one guy who took one Defcon really seriously because he's like, listen, if I just sacrifice this Defcon, the enjoyment, and actually get this bike badge, I can go for free to the rest of them. So I kind of see that mentality there, but that's a lot harder said than done once you actually get to the camaraderie of the.
So what are some of the challenges you would do to kind of do these things?
Yeah. So they've really varied in recent years, but like I think the last time I went to Defcon, they had these quartz badges which you click together.
Okay, yeah, and I remember seeing that.
Yeah, and so it would basically allow you to collect different badge types, and eventually, and this is actually very similar in nature in that it. Well, first of all, when you plug this into your computer, which I'm not doing now for obvious reasons. It shows up as a virtual COM port, so you can connect to it via any serial terminal. Once you connect to it via any serial terminal, there's a macro board on here, so you can basically macro all the keys to have different functions, whether it be like to spit out like a hash, which I'll explain in a second, and then also to rebind. Let me actually turn this on. If you turn it on, you can see that. Oh, is it dead?
Oh, there we go. Oh yeah.
It actually. Maybe I just unbound all of the lights, but essentially. You turn this thing on, you click on these, they all have different functions, especially when it plugs into the PC, but the goal for this year was to connect to as many other badges as possible.
Hence that kind of human-to-human interaction, go meet people, go talk to new people.
That's exactly
I can see that kind of community aspect of DevCon, which I hear is pretty powerful. So.
Yeah, because a lot of us in this space happen to be introverts or somewhat timid, so I think this is a really smart way to kind of have us. It break the ice. It creates this level of rapport.
It's a powerful model, right?
Right. I mean, automatically we have something that we can relate to, try and figure out together. And in fact, I found a lot of random people just kind of asking me, "Oh, hey, come here, let's connect this."
See what happens.
Yeah, exactly. So I really love that about the badges. These ones you can, because of the hybrid model, you can connect to them both physically. As well as I think it was like the fourth macro on here allows you to it outputs a code.
Okay.
You can then provide that code to other users who will then provide your code, provide you with the code, and you can collect these codes and different badge types. And the goal is usually to collect all the badge types.
Right.
That's pretty difficult to do because the
Hence
Uber badge
the black badge,
is
right?
rare.
It's hard to find.
It's hard to find those guys. Exactly right. Like I actually think in my few years of DEF CON, I don't know, I've maybe only seen and I don't know if it was for sure a black badge, but it looked like one. I've only seen it once, and I've only ever seen them on Reddit. Maybe I'm not looking hard enough. But
or they're probably hiding on purpose, right?
Yeah, no, exactly right. Or maybe those guys don't even come to DEF CON or something. They just got over it the year they got their black badge and
that's funny.
No, but I think it was a good kind of model because anybody that attended virtually could use the codes to connect to each other.
Okay,
but you could also connect to each other physically. As you can see, there's the input and the connector
so they kind of just snap together.
Exactly. So you can actually put like 10 of these together.
One complicated Lego set.
Exactly.
and I think what's kind of cool about the badges is it's like literally here's your badge. There's no manual. There's no instructions. It's you have to kind of figure it out. Essentially hack into it, understand what you can do, and that's I think also part of the whole culture of the DEF CON experience is figuring out, trying, failing, breaking, asking for help, repeat, and just cycle through, right?
Totally, and it is can be cryptic in nature for sure. The information is not like easily acquired per se. It's not like impossible to get your hands on, but I think if you were maybe a layman attending this event for the first time and you didn't know something,
probably overwhelmed a little bit. Yeah,
you just not know where or what to do because a lot of the details are hidden within the pamphlets that they give you. Like you said, there was no instruction on this. It was just, I guess there was a GitHub that had you had to.
I'm sure there's probably hints laid around.
Exactly, and plus you have to add the.
But for someone that's coming in blind or new, they're going to be.
Hey, what do I do? They'll probably only see this as a badge, not as
or they plug it in and then say, okay, what is this thing really doing? Oh, I have a terminal access. Okay, let me try to log into it or things like that.
Right. And truth be told, there are probably some functions of this that I have not discovered yet. A couple of the challenges were bind the keys so that it outputs your GitHub, and you can get a job that way or whatever. I thought that was really clever.
Interesting.
But,
that's an interesting way to apply for something.
Yeah, it's like, hey, you know, if you can
I guess
figure
if
it
you
out,
can pull it off,
the
then,
creators put that there, so that was a good way to look to hire somebody who can
that's actually a good point. I think there's a lot of credit that goes to actually developing what these things do, because that's really kind of the wizardry of it all. You know, not just hacking into it, but like what's the like master grand scheme of things, which is really cool.
You bring up a really good point, because that was actually one of my. It was one of the better talks I saw, was how they actually made the badge, because you generally have them each year, but this is the first year that I watched them, and it was incredible to hear how difficult it was given the pandemic, like back order on parts.
Yeah, because we all know supply chain's an issue right now.
Oh yeah, and so they actually had to buy 7 3D printers so that they can actually create the keycaps for these guys, because the keycaps are on back order and they weren't going to get them in time. And it was like amazing. 4 months out that they were making these things. So that just goes to show how much they struggled with it. And then they said
it also shows how much they care about the experience to the attendees, because they know the badging is a huge part of this, right? So it's really cool.
And the best part about that too is usually volunteers make those. So it's dudes that are and ladies who are super passionate about this, right?
Yeah.
And that's what's even more incredible, is just like, you know, they despite everything, they still wanted a way to improve the experience. And honestly, these are probably some of the cooler badges I've seen in terms of looking and functionality.
Yeah,
so,
better than just a plastic badge for sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you know, it's hit or miss. Sometimes you get those not so special ones.
Makes sense. So I know there's also the concept of like villages, right?
Yes.
So maybe kind of explain to us like what do those really mean? What do they entail? I saw some great ones around healthcare and other things. So like what do those kind of play into it?
So there are a few elements. So the things that you really interact with. So you got your villages, as you just mentioned, but you also got workshops, contests and CTFs, meetups and parties, demos, and then presentations. So
quite a lot to pick from then.
A lot of content to pick from. In fact, that was probably the hardest. That's probably the hardest part about Defcon.
So what do you want to do?
There's so many topics, and it is quite literally impossible that you're going to see all the things that you want to see.
Of course, yeah. In such a short amount of time.
Yes, and especially when you consider the virtual component this year, there were more things stacked on top of each other than normal.
Makes sense.
So I found it very difficult to engage in like everything. Obviously, that was already hard, but I actually found it to be even more difficult now because of how many things.
Right.
And I guess that's a good problem to have. I'd rather have more things to interact from than less. But it was interesting seeing the model that way. But the villages those are really cool, because basically there are different booths, and there's a big ballroom, and in the ballroom there are different booths for different subject matters within InfoSec. So whether that be like recon, adversary emulation, password crafting, really kind of even nuanced,
super niche,
right? Not necessarily just like blue team, red team, although they have those booths as well. So you come up to the booth, and there are generally volunteers there. There's some merch. You can interact with people there and learn about specific technologies. But they also have demos and kind of workshops there as well. So they'll have maybe stations you can walk up to. One of the ones that's probably the most memorable for me is the IoT station, because I like to do things that I don't always do on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's a good way to kind of practice your craft that you're not really doing day to day, right?
Exactly, and I don't, that's one of my weak areas, so I always try and get as much data there as I can to build myself up. And that one was really cool because they basically had a bunch of like disassembled Wi-Fi routers, and you were hacking UART to basically get access to the firmware, and then add user accounts to the subsystem, and then thereby getting access to the system itself. But it's really cool because you basically walk up to these things, and you kind of start working on it. They have like they may or may not have like a walkthrough on how to perform the thing. People will come around,
probably offer help, or like, hey, I'm totally stuck, or I'm totally new. Where do I begin? Things like that.
Yeah, and usually the people that volunteer at the villages are like really into that particular, technology. So they have a lot of value to offer in terms of like how to kind of get started and whatnot.
Yeah,
and,
that's cool.
In my opinion, that's probably the most high value thing at Defcon, because while the presentations are awesome, and actually I thought the topics this year were incredible, Some of them are recorded, and especially in the
Right.
virtual aspect. So it's like if
You
you're
can kind of go back and watch it.
if
And you
you're
want to
gonna
do
spend your
something
time
maybe
doing-
hands-on.
Exactly, right.
That makes sense.
Because a lot of that is a lot harder to get later on, and that brings to the point of workshops. Workshops are probably the most high-value thing at Defcon, but they're also the quickest to fill in capacity, or they're gone almost immediately. Because, like I said, who doesn't want training at one of these events that's extremely high value, and then they're limited small classrooms, right? So think about a 20,000 person event and only 30 people in a room for a particular interesting topic. Yeah, I mean.
So are they like kind of time based, or is it kind of like, hey, you're there for maybe a couple hours, or it could be shorter time frames? Like, what does that look like?
Usually they'll have like a window that they're allotted for sure, but a lot of the challenges will extend past just the workshop itself. They'll have online resources where you can interact. Some set up labs online that you can connect to, and then keep performing whatever. Like, you can actually still connect with people to the badges. Like, you go on the Discord and I put the code. I can put my code in there, and they'll send it back to me and whatnot. So, same thing with the workshops. You'll have a certain amount. I think it was the year before. Excuse me. I got to do an intro red team kind of workshop, or more red team infrastructure. So setting up like C2 and secure C2, stealth C2, those kinds of things. That was, I felt like I got really lucky on that one because I was actually able to make it in there. But I forgot where I was going with that. But super high value those workshops.
So you have the workshops, and you kind of have the talks, and then the presentations.
Yes. So then the demos. I really like the demos as well because you get to see like tools that you're probably going to actually use in the workplace. Yeah. So a few tools I'll just name off here that I remember was Principal Mapper, which maps privilege escalation in AWS IAM. I can't wait to actually use that live. A lot of these I only saw demos for, so I didn't actually get to get my hands on with them yet.
It kind of gets your creative juices flowing. Like, oh, it's a really cool tool. I can use it for this engagement, or I can use it as part of my toolkit here. And
totally,
things like that, right?
It allows me to expand my capabilities because these guys are maybe presenting this for the first time, and they may be demoing it. So I find some new efficient way that I can bring back that to my arsenal, which I found I got to go through. It's really valuable. So then there was other like privacy analysis tools and automated recon frameworks, and then also a tool for hunting for leaked credentials, which I'm very excited to try those. But so lots of demos. Those actually also take place at the villages, so I guess that kind of ties into the village. And then you got the presentation. So, like I said, the presentations are awesome. There's a few awesome topics this year. Like, I went to one called People Hunting from a Pen Tester's Perspective. I actually found a few OSINT tools there that I wasn't aware of.
Nice.
And then there was actually this really cool one called Aliens, Disinformation, and UFOs.
Wow.
And it's actually incredible to see this community now engaging more in like the DEFCON space. They've always had a little bit of a presence there, but even more so now, and in a more like legitimate way. It was always kind of like this niche water
like super subgroup.
Yeah. That was, I think, one of the more popular talks this year. So what that says about the relationship between InfoSec.
Think of it however you want to, right?
Yeah, right.
Exactly. That's pretty cool. You're seeing a different little bit of kind of like subculture coming in board, and
well, and it brought up some. Oh, excuse me. It brought up some really good topics around privacy. So.
Oh yeah, I can see that, right?
Yeah, and just the government info sharing and whatnot.
So, is there any kind of like general themes this year, or was it pretty much just a whole bunch of everything, and anything kind of common you saw?
Well, I think the official theme was it was something signal. I don't remember what it was, but I didn't really see it like branded too much like homogeneously throughout the event. So it was pretty. The theme was kind of just DEFCON in and of itself,
like
but
first one back kind of a thing since everything.
I suppose that was
just people happy. Probably a lot of people were kind of excited just to see each other.
Yes.
And get reacquainted. 'Cause I'm sure some of these people go to this, from all over the world once a year. So this is like the kind of key marquee event. So missing it with last year and everything else, I'm sure people were just like, hey man, I just want to see you. I haven't seen people in a while, and kind of get out in front of people in person.
Yeah, I definitely think you saw a lot of like the social hackers there, because the skeptics and the ones that are anti-authoritarian are probably reluctant to want to go there and show their their vaccine card and all.
Yeah, that's true.
It's that, I get it, it's that type of crowd, but I think the social aspect of it, you could tell people were hungry to network, and I made at least 10 connections in like the first day before we even actually started getting into the talks, so it was definitely there. But of course so maybe that was the model, the theme was hybrid, right? Virtual and because that was if I were to do it again, or if I were to do it virtual, I probably would have had a different experience. I probably would have spent way more time on the CTFs, because that's all basically virtual. It's kind of hard to do it while you're physically there because of the commotion and
just just the chaos of it all.
You have to be pretty dedicated and focused to be able to do CTFs and successfully in that kind of loud environment. But if I was home virtual, that's probably all I would do is that and the villages. You know what I mean? So
for the CTFs, like, is there multiple CTFs? Is there kind of one main one? Like, how does that kind of work? I've seen and kind of heard some things.
Yeah, so there's definitely like a ton, depending on what category or what subject matter you're getting into. But they do have like an intro CTF. They have some CTFs that are like primary as compared to some of the other ones. I actually forget what they call it. It's in the pamphlet. What was the name of the bigger one was this year? But usually they have like a lot of bigger teams that'll sign up beforehand for some of the primary events. Yeah, and a lot of those guys are pretty reputable.
Is it more kind of just like, hey, if you win, bragging rights? Like, hey, yeah, I got this and won it. And
usually bragging rights. Usually black badge. Usually some kind of black badge. I think is a big one. And so usually there are other types of rewards too. I haven't seen like any kind of like $10,000.
But still like just bragging rights on the forums and hey, we completed it, because I've heard people can really just go all in and just spend hours and hours and hours just diving into those things.
And you bring up a good point, because Defcon's probably one of the best places to build notoriety within the industry. A lot of the individuals are promoting their kind of social medias and their companies and whatnot, and so I found that it was a very good way to, I guess, if you were looking to share a tool or build your own personal brand within InfoSec, that's a great way to do it. And then, of course, participating in those CTFs and winning. Yeah, and that's huge.
So I'm sure you probably see a mix of say larger, maybe InfoSec type companies to more individuals, or even just like smaller teams, right, across the board, pretty much.
Yeah. You bring up a good point. Like, attendees is not everybody is going to be the same kind of person. That's just technical info. There are all kinds of InfoSec professionals there, whether you're highly technical or you're on the sales side.
Maybe more governance or risk, maybe things like that.
And not, it's labeled as a hacker conference, so people tend to think like it's guys that are breaking into things.
Yeah, lock picking everything they can and breaking into whatever. So.
And sure, you got a lot of red teamers there, no doubt, but you got blue teamers, like you said, GRC guys, you have privacy guys, you have software developers, social engineering. It's
become a pretty wide mix now, which is good, because a good place to hone your skills in different areas and niches, and just learning, expanding. Like, hey, I may focus on A, I want to go learn about B, and then kind of opens your mind to new ideas and what's out there. So I think it's kind of morphed maybe from that, true kind of hacker, kind of quote unquote thing, to much more of a really kind of high end InfoSec type of community and team building and outreach, which is pretty cool.
I think it's about the mindset. That if I could describe Defcon, it's like people with the same.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, because it's like people that go to Black Hat are InfoSec professionals, but what makes these two different people what makes these two groups different is, I find that one, there's probably inherently there's more camaraderie in Defcon, because it's kind of like let your hair down kind of event, but I find more like the hacker in the original meaning definition of the word hacker, where you're kind of like a tinkerer,
the spirit,
a curious, right? Those kind of mindsets, right? That are very interested in the technology itself. Maybe not so much interested in how it impacts like a business or the real world. Sometimes maybe they care more about like the actual tech itself. And I find that to be the kind of attendee at Defcon. And still, it's still valuable for everybody else, because at the end of the day, if you're trying to defend your systems from threats, you should probably know who the threat is.
Information's power, so can't hurt to learn. And I'd be kind of curious to know like the stats of like every year, like how many % is like first time people attending. I'd be kind of curious to see.
Actually, that would be really interesting. This would be probably a really good year to do that, because it probably would have gone down. Actually, I don't know. Maybe
it might go up, because people might think, okay, like might be less people. I won't feel maybe awkward, so I want to go. I don't know. I'm just kind of curious to see that.
Yeah, two schools of thought there. I don't know what would be the prevailing one, but I would think, because of the pandemic, maybe some of the more timid or anti-establishment folks probably stayed home, and maybe
just did it virtual.
Maybe some other people found it as an excuse to get out of the house and go party a little bit.
Yeah, spend some time in Vegas and everything.
Yeah, because that's the other cool thing I didn't get to mention yet is like the meetups and parties. Like outside of the technical stuff, there are a lot of really cool things that kind of bring everybody together socially. Like there was an A&E pool party at the Mandalay Bay. They have this thing called they have a few things. One called Hacker Karaoke. That one's kind of interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, I would never put myself in that situation. But
like you're pretty outgoing, but that might be a little bit much.
Yeah, maybe a little much for you. Somebody else might enjoy that more than I would. But Hacker Jeopardy is probably like the
oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yes, this is like probably the crowd favorite, the gold standard for all of the meetups, because, and sadly, this year wasn't the same because of the pandemic situation. Because usually how it works is they put us all in like a big ballroom.
Okay.
They have a panel set up with judges and the two teams that are participating. This year was 2 teams. But then they have like the kind of goon squad that are like sitting in the back with a terminal, and that terminal is being displayed to everybody. So they're just trolling, talking mad smack, just all kinds of stuff on there. But a little flowery for the podcast part maybe, but it's one of the most like rowdy parts of the event. But you're also learning about InfoSec at the same time. There's a little bit of trivia in there, but it's awesome. Like they throw like balloons.
And that's probably been there since like day one, pretty much, or like long standing. So it's kind of like this, historical kind of moment. And huge part of the conference.
Yeah, in my opinion, that single event probably encapsulates like the attitude and the mindset of the industry more than anything else. Like the quirkiness, the trolling, the at the same time the tech elitism, and not in a bad way when I say elitism, but the high acclamation for tech, like that, you see the culmination of that, and all these people all in a room, and it's always a good time. It's always hilarious.
It's really cool.
Whoever's on the keyboard is like a genius of comedy.
Kind of like the whole maestro of ceremonies, if you will.
Yes, exactly right. And so like I said, this year was a little bit disappointing because of the hybrid model. You couldn't really like the energy wasn't the same, and then
that's true. Being in the room is always different with people.
Yeah, and then a lot of it was just online, so the teams weren't even there.
I see.
So it made it a little bit different, but still, still fun, and I can't wait to actually go back to that again. In person.
Yeah. Any kind of takeaways you learned, or any things you want to share with our audience, like a couple of key tips or anything?
Well, definitely a lot of like technical tips, and I would love to we'll probably go over them on this next podcast in detail about some like the remediation strategies for certain vulnerabilities and hardware and software vulns, and some best practices around privacy. A lot of new OSINT and OPSEC techniques for me personally.
Nice.
But really, key takeaway for this one, there were a lot of takeaways, honestly, because it's like there's the educational aspect to it, but I guess like from an event perspective, I found I was very like pleased with the fact they were able to put the event together, and that we were actually able to do it. People seemed willing to comply with a lot of the mandates in order to make that happen. So I was very happy about that. I recommend, if you haven't been to this kind of event, to go to the event. A lot of network. I feel like I made a ton of friends during this engagement.
Invaluable, right? Because you never know. Like, hey, someone needs a job. you bounce ideas around. It's like kind of ongoing culture and community, which I think is a huge part of those things.
Yeah, like maybe in fact, if I were to say one takeaway outside of the obvious like topic specific details and things, I think it would be the networking, because truth be told, if you get a part of like a private group that now does knowledge sharing, that is insanely powerful. That lives on way past the event,
Yeah.
And so, if anything, maybe that's the most important and key takeaway of it all, is just like spending a lot of time with other people, the knowledge share between those individuals. Like now I have access to GitHubs I didn't have access to before.
That's true.
I have access to Discords that I didn't have access to before. These guys have different specialties and information. So yeah, it's an expansion of the industry, and it's a share of resources that makes us all better. So
yeah, I think it's fantastic. It's a amazing event and always highly talked about. And I think to your point, it's not just the actual talks, but everything that comes before, during, and after it as well. And I hope it goes on for long future.
Definitely.
For sure. Yeah. We got to have something like this.
Well, you'll be there next year.
Yeah, we'll go next year for sure.
That's right.
I'll be like, not bringing anything, just go pen and paper and stay off the network.
Yeah. if you're not all burnt out from Black Hat by then.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. That maybe we'll before we end it off here. That was kind of interesting what you just mentioned. So for those that don't know, when you go to Defcon, it's debatable the level of a tinfoil hat that you should have when you show up, but a lot of the times individuals will use like burner phones and not get on, or use MiFi's, not get on any kind of public Wi-Fi there. Use VPNs whenever possible. Don't pass clear text creds over the air, and you do a lot of these things. And
you kind of start to practice what you actually preach every day. You're like, okay, let's start doing that.
It also adds to the experience, because it kind of like creates this edginess where it's like, and I think usually, and there have obviously been throughout the years different kinds of compromises. I think one of the most notable ones was in like the Wall of Sheep or the network, which was that's meant to be
right. It's supposed to be like exactly, that, so enter at your own risk type of a thing.
Exactly.
You kind of know what you're getting into.
Yeah, that's right. So good overall event. Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, thanks for sharing that, Sammy. Hopefully the viewers kind of liked it. Let us know in the comments. Any questions? We can do follow-ups on this. A little bit of a different Friday show. And again, like that. Like, subscribe, follow us, and thanks everybody. And we'll have a good Friday.
Catch you Wednesday.
Yep. See you soon. Bye.